Okay, so what I've got here is a 10-minute sketch of some mountain ranges. In the far distance we've got some snow-capped mountains, we've got a few boats, just going by a river/lake. So this is a photo I took a while back, and I'm going to be using the reference quite loosely, so you can see in terms of the mountains and yeah, even some of the boats I haven't done it. I've excluded some bits and pieces here and there. So let's get started. I'm just going to raise prop this underneath the paper just to give it give the paper a bit of a slight slant. So materials, as usual, I've got bit of old cloth here that I use to control how much water the paintbrush has. I've got 3 paintbrushes. I think this is all I'll need for this quick one. I've got a smaller sable brush here. I've got a number 8 synthetic. It's pretty worn actually. I probably should do a bit of a refresh on some of my paintbrushes. I've also got this last one, which I used last time as well, which is a calligraphy brush. Good thing about these is that they hold a nice point, and they can also cover a large area, hold a lot of paint. So let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is, like most of my paintings, I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. So this is essentially just working through different washes. So with the first wash, I'm going to go with a light blue, we're starting a little bit darker at the top. Oops. So I'm just mixing up some paint here. Thinking I'll probably just use this top area, the palette, to mix up the paint. So I've got cerulean blue, and a bit of ultramarine. So I'm just going to test just to see if that's around what I'm looking for, which looks about right. Right, mixing up a bit more of this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to start off a little bit darker out on the top, and as I come down, just get lighter basically. And to make the paint lighter, all you need to do is just add a bit more water to the mix. Okay, so you can see how easy it is to cover quite a large area actually. With watercolors, it's not like when you're working with acrylics or oils, using up tubes of paints at a time. So let's work our way down to these mountains. Now, sometimes what I like to do is leave some spaces in the sky, like this kind of thing, and that indicates some clouds. There's other ways you can do. You can indicate clouds as well. So I've got a bit of tissue paper here. You can start to dab little bits of the sky, and this will remove bits of the pigment as well to indicate clouds. So there's a few different ways you can do things. These are just 2. So I'm going to go down and working my way towards these mountain ranges. Now, I don't want to go over the mountain ranges yet. The ones in the back, and the reason is I want to leave some white areas to indicate, you know, some snow on the tops. Okay, so just again working my way through, cutting around the mountains at the back, and I'm just using the same little puddle of paint there that I had originally just watered down cerulean blue and ultramarine. So I'm almost getting there. And with, you know, even with you know, cutting around shapes and stuff, I try to use a larger brush. Sometimes if you end up using too small of a brush, it looks a bit artificial. So that's pretty much covered the sky now. So yeah, like I said before, I mean, you can leave bits and pieces like that. I'm actually going to go over it and then later lift out a little bit of the paint with the tissue. Okay, so you can see in the reference picture, especially that there are some cloud-like, very small clouds just on the edge here. Another thing people do as well is you can wait for the paint to begin to dry and add little bits of water, just clean water throughout the areas that you want to indicate clouds, and you see some bloom-like effects. The only issue with that is that it can be quite unpredictable. So we'll see how this kind of turns out. So moving on to the next bit now, I'm going to maybe do these. We'll start doing these mountains, because I don't want to leave that out as I'm moving down the page if I don't have to. So I'm gonna just mix up a little bit of that same blue, and with a bit of dry brush, and just looking at the reference as well, I'm going to just indicate bits of snow on these mountains. So to do that, you just have to make sure that you're leaving some white here and there. Okay, that's all you need to do. And if you look at the rest of it, it's pretty dark near the bottom, so a bit more blue. Should really clean this palette. Okay, so we'll carry this bit down. Oops. Here, yeah. And we'll do the same also on this side here. Just add a bit there. Right. It's almost turned a bit purpley now. Let's have a quick look at the reference again. So I'm trying to leave some white bits, especially on the right side of the mountain, which is where the light's coming from. And the rest of it, Okay, I'm going to make up this bit here. And there we go. So there's the mountain in the background. Now, as you move forwards, you can see there's almost 3 levels of mountain or terrain, I guess. You've got this last back bit, which I've done. Then you've got this second part here, which is pretty much unpainted, and then you've got this little part at the front, which is mostly trees and a bit of greenery there. So you want to make it darker as you're coming forward to give the illusion of perspective. So of things appearing a bit further and closer together. So this is pretty much dried now. Almost, well, it looks like it's almost dry, but it doesn't quite matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around this next bit in a darker kind of maybe like a purpley. This is purpley sort of blue color. It's not a huge, doesn't really make a huge difference in terms of the exact blues that you use. It's more important that you get the consistency of the paint right. So you can see here the blue that I've mixed up is darker than what's in the background, but I don't want it to be too dark. Okay, so that looks okay. I'm just going to run with that. Go around. This area here. Okay. And looking at the reference as well. It's all almost the same color. There are trees in there. But it appears bluish only because it's so far in the distance. So I'm going to go ahead and just get this area out the way. Switch to a slightly bigger brush actually, and try to move through such. And remembering to cut around these little boats and things like that in the background. Okay, yep. I think I've gone over a bit of that front part, but that's fine. And we're going to go across here. And further up there. That looks alright to me for this second part. You might also want to, while you have a chance, the paint's still wet, you might want to just add a little bit of green in here. Just indicate that there are, just give it a bit of variation, and we know that there's trees in there as well, so okay. And I'm also going to just define these mountains a little bit more to make them sort of stick out of the sky a bit. So I'm just tracing around some of the edges. touch and go where you small pieces here and there. Okay. Cool. Oh, one thing I forgot to do was to take out some of the paint from here, but that's all right. So now, while this is all drying in the background, next thing is basically to make sure that you've got the water down packed at the front. So I'm going to mix up some kind of grayish blue. So I don't know what I've got here. A bit of blue, bit of red, bit of yellow. Actually, I need to make it a bit lighter at the back, so I should. Ugh, making a mess. Okay. So that's a bit too dark, but that's no problem. Just dampen it down again. So working from the back of the waterline, and I'm trying to also get it to hopefully blend with these mountains slightly in the background. I'm just going to go cut around these boats to the left and the right, as such, and I'm going to work my way down the page. Side done as well. Okay. Now as you move down the page, again, just adding more pigment as you go down. That's probably about right. And it's kind of turning into a bit of a purpley color now, which is fine. Try to leave, making sure that the back part of the water still is lighter than the front. So I'm gonna go over this darker paint here. Pretty much should cover it. While the paper is still wet, it's a good idea to add in little soft waves where you can. So what have I got? I'm just going to mix in some of this blue. It's actually probably a bit too wet at the moment, but if you sort of get enough thickness in the paint, you should be fine. So let's have a look at how the waves are going. It's all pretty much, it's quite a calm day, so nothing too crazy going on there. But you do want to add a little bit of irregularities here in the wave. You don't want it to look too neat and tidy. So as you can see, just adding in some of the waves and in the distance as well here, and making sure the waves at the back are smaller than the waves at the front. Oops, a bit too dark, that's alright. There we go. Just continuing this. You notice I'm using a smaller brush make smaller waves at the back. It's a lot easier than using one of the larger brushes. If you go a bit too dark, it's going to cause some issues. So I'm still wanting to make the front darker, and I might go in with the bigger brush here and more purple, maybe a bit of red and yellow. That's going to get me a darker sort of grey. Slash purple. Okay. And remember, the best time to do this type of stuff is when the paper's still wet. You can't blend these colours together in this sort of way when it begins to dry. You can do some kind of sharp waves, so wet on dry sort of sharp waves, which I'm going to add in later. But you've only got one chance essentially to do this. So look, I'm pretty happy with that, so I'm just going to leave it there. Now thinking back through this painting, I probably should have done these mountains at the front. Yeah, probably should have done them a little bit earlier. Worried now if I start doing them, it's going to bleed into the water. But that's all right. Let's give it a try. So pretty much the darkest areas in the painting are the mountains. And you've got the bottom of the boats. I've also got some waves here, smaller waves in the distance, like little ones which kind of almost join together some of these boats, and I'm going to try to add some of those in later, and also the reflections of the boats. So let's try to mix up a greenish color for this area. That looks pretty much like what I want. Maybe a bit darker, so add some purple in there. Cutting around again these boats. It can be actually quite hard to do at times. So, yep, just really getting through, this bit here, and covering this area. Okay. You'll notice what I've now left is just this little cover on the boat, and the boat in the distance, the distance here, just the top of it. So let's see if I can kind of get rid of these little bits of white down the bottom of the page here, and it will bleed into the water just a little bit, but you know, that might actually work out. Only slightly. Okay. So that looks all right to me. Might add in just some bits and pieces here and there like that. And also this part which I've almost forgotten about. Okay. So this now needs a little bit of time to dry. I'm actually going to pull out the hairdryer again. So with the boats, we're going to go through and make them a kind of light blue color. So looking at the tones in the picture, in the reference, that looks about right. And at the same time, we're going to do the one in the background here. Okay. One on the left. These little covers here as well, try to fit them in, and this part too. So I want to leave some whites on that side. Okay. What I'm doing here is just lifting out a bit of paint, make this side a bit slightly lighter. Okay. Now, while that other one is still wet, what I'm going to do is go in with a little bit of colour. So I've got some red and blue here mixed together. Just do as well is just probably just do this mask at the same time. Coming down to this side here. And I'll do this other one at the same time too. Pretty quick. And I'm going to mix up a bit of paint, bit of grey, red, blue and yellow, and I'm going to start putting in the shadows of these boats. I'm going to need actually a lot. Not enough water. Okay, so we get started. Yeah, too much. Not to forget this one as well. I'm actually going to need to go darker than that, I think. And really what I'm doing is just looking at that reference picture, where some of the darker waves are at the back. This is actually quite fun to do, so well, it's the most fun part of the painting, actually painting these waves, just seeing how they all join together and really only doing the same motion, moving your arm from left to right to get the effect of these waves. Start to run out of paint again, so let's add in some more. Oh, too much red.